and welcome to Feels Like Magic, the podcast where you will get the grounded self-development wisdom you might need to feel amazing about the person you authentically are. I'm Jo, a transformational coach, speaker, and author, and for decades I was so stuck in self-criticism that I never thought I would feel good about being me. Now I inhabit a new reality, one where I care way less about what other people think. I'm willing to show up as the person that I am, and I deepen into self-love and acceptance every single day. Honestly, it feels like magic. Each week, I'll share scientifically proven tools, things I've learned from the world's best coaches, and personal stories I know you'll relate to. Ready? Let's dive in. Hello, darling, and welcome back. I just feeling so grateful because this podcast now has over 1,000 downloads. And for me, when you put something out there, you just don't know. There's so much to listen to, and there are so many places to go and so many places to get information. And so if you're here and you have been here and you are continually here, I just want to say that I see you, I appreciate you, and it really does make a difference to me, liking and subscribing and reviewing the podcast. I know some of you have done that. And if you haven't already, it would be amazing. It just takes a second to give it a rating. And if you have a minute to just write down anything you've got from it, it would be beautiful, because I would love to get this to more people. So thank you for being here from the bottom of my heart and being you. First of all, a couple of things to tell you about, some exciting news. So Fierce Heart, my masterclass in how to stand up for yourself and the life you want, is available for the next 24 hours and then it will disappear. So if you're listening live and you want to go grab that, the link is in the show notes. It is a potent process that I guide you through. And there's also a meditation and some incredible journal prompts to just go so much deeper on this. If you know you're a people pleaser, if you know that you always put other people above yourself, if you know that you stay quiet when actually you don't think something is right, then process is really going to help you to maybe understand why and start to move into a different way of being. I'm really proud of it. It's some incredible, incredible stuff in there. So head to my website and you can grab that. And then the second thing I want to tell you is that I'm running 2 workshops, one to close the year and one to open the year. And the closing of the year workshop is coming up on the 15th. So next Sunday at 4 p.m. UK time. It is the most beautiful ritual. I've done this workshop for 4 years now, and it never fails to amaze me what comes through when I really carve out the time to sit with my year, to sit and write about it, to really be with the challenges and the lessons and the growth, but also just the beautiful moments, the things that you've forgotten that happened this year. And there's something about it that will really enhance your ability to see your own strength, all the things you've forgotten that you've done, right? Because you were just in life. So if you can make it along live to that, I would love that. And if you can make the live call, then please do grab the replay, carve out some time over the holidays and really sit with yourself and see your year off in a really, really meaningful way. And so I want to talk today about shame, because shame is one of the biggest reasons that we don't feel good enough. Shame is one of the biggest things in our life that separates us from the people around us, happiness, success, the results that we want, because underneath it all, we do not believe we deserve it. And the distinction that I want to make right at the beginning is that shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I am bad. That is what we learn to believe about ourselves. And it starts, as you might imagine, as all things do in childhood. And shame is such a powerful emotion. And it continues to have its power when we keep it hidden, when we don't talk about it, when we keep things to ourselves, when we plaster over them with a smile, then it continues to have power in your subconscious and therefore power over your life. And that may be why, if you're sitting here and you have blocks to things, you're trying to build a business, but it's not getting where you want it to go. You are wanting to call in a partner, but nobody is coming along. You are in your career, but nobody is paying attention to you. You want to have a family, but it's not kind of working. I'm not saying that these things are contributed to shame, but there's a lot of research that suggests what shame does to our bodies and our nervous system is so toxic that actually it's the most damaging force for us as humans. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my own shame today. And I'm going to talk about how that has shown up for me and how I have danced with it and how I have navigated and how I have come through the other side. And I'm not I'm not never going to feel shame anymore. That's not how this goes. This is life. And I think the key for me is to catch it and to name it and to really realize, okay, I understand why this is here. And just to begin, I think a definition is really useful. I love Brene Brown and her work, and she talks about all the emotions in her incredible book, Atlas of the Heart. And she says that shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. And when I hear that, I really resonate with that. This feeling of being separate, being different, being not like other people and not in a good way. And shame can exist in so many different ways, and it really can come from our conditioning as well. So, if you are in a culture where talking about sex is considered shameful, then you are going to keep that inside and it becomes really repressed. Whereas you may be in a culture where that is something that everybody does, and therefore there is no shame around it. So, we as human beings create conditions for shame to live, to grow, to thrive, and it really thrives in the dark. And then it has an impact on our body. It has an impact on the way that we hold ourselves in the world. And for me, I was bullied and made fun of for my height for quite a young age. I'm very tall. And I grew up in the diet culture of the 90s. I grew up in the time of like size zero models and basically being told by every magazine and every advertisement and everything in culture that you needed to be smaller. And I remember just feeling so ashamed of how big I was. And actually, big was the word that really triggered me. Not tall, but big. It was very much about my size, my physical size. And I believed that there was something so wrong with my body. I started drinking when I was like 16 and I went really hard into it for a while because it was the only way that the shame that I felt about my body didn't feel like it existed anymore. And it was perpetuated by things like I couldn't wear the same clothes as my sisters or my friends because I was bigger and there was nothing I could do. And so I felt like I was flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging and connection because of the shame that I had around my body. And I know that so many other women experience that too for many different reasons. So I really want to be honest about that. It was such a huge part of my journey and led to an eating disorder, led to self-hatred, led to picking every single thing apart about myself, and led to so many years of, I can look at photos from those years and I look happy, but I know I was miserable because I just didn't feel like I was enough and I didn't feel like anybody would ever love me. So that is shame. That is shame. And then what happens when we have this shame, and it can come from anywhere. There are so many things. Like if your family didn't have money, you could carry shame around that and feeling different from other people in terms of money and wealth. If you have religious conditioning from when you were younger, there may be things that were considered shameful or taboo to talk about. Emotions that are so human and natural to feel, like greed and jealousy and behavior that's driven from those, particularly when we're children and we're kind of working things out and we're very pure. There's so many different ways in which we carry shame and things that have happened to us, things that we've experienced, things that we've seen, so many different ways. But essentially, anything that leads to that feeling of I am bad and I am unworthy of love, belonging, and connection is shame. And it's really interesting because we can go into, people talk about shame spirals and shame cycles, but nobody ever talks about how to get out of shame. Nobody ever talks about actually we don't have to live with this. And I've had very embodied experiences of not having to live with it. Yes, now I'm in coaching and I do it in coaching containers. But before that, when I told my family about my eating disorder, when I asked for help with my depression, when I decided that I couldn't do certain jobs anymore. And I felt when I left my PR job, I used to work in PR in my 20s, and I felt so ashamed that didn't make me happy. I really felt like I was broken and I felt like there was something wrong with me. And so when we experience this and we experience shame, we form masks, identities, ways to cover ourselves up so that we don't have to truly be seen. So one of these masks that you may relate to, that's definitely one of mine, is perfectionism. Perfectionism is a mask. Perfectionism is a way for us to not truly be seen because we are the judge by the standard of something. And there is no space, if you're a perfectionist, for something to be messy, to be flawed, to be human. If you are a perfectionist, it just is what it is. And that identity can become, that mask can become really damaging. Another mask that we wear is good girl, good boy. I'm just going to do everything that I'm told and follow the rules. And that's how I'm going to just not let anybody see the shame that exists. Another one is being the rock, the person that does everything for everyone else and never ever has to look at their own stuff, right? Because there's no time. So we start to build these masks, wear these masks that aren't really who we are in order to hide and in order to stop people from really seeing us and seeing the shame that we carry. And here is the key for how we get out of it. And Brene Brown talks about this as well. She said, if you put shame in a petri dish with empathy, it cannot survive. It just cannot survive. So what we need in order to overcome shame is to be held and heard about the things that we are ashamed of in a safe space. And that last part is key. It's really important that we're held in safety. And this is why coaching is so powerful. And this is why you can come to coaching and you can have like a habit or an eating disorder or something that is running very, very deep in your system, like anger that you felt every single day or anxiety that you felt every single day. And you can come and then by the end of 6 months, you can leave and you no longer have it because we've done such deep work on the parts of you that carry so much shame. So when we get the opportunity to be in spaces where we can be held safely and we can talk and be witnessed in the things that we hold so close to ourselves, then our shame dissipates. When we keep it on inside, it is in the dark corners, and then those dark corners just start to bloom. And our shame becomes part of our identity. And I really want to do a separate episode on this next point, but I also want to be really realistic about it. I had so much shame around being single, so much shame. I really thought there was something wrong with me, that nobody would ever love me. And then I got into a relationship and I was like, at last, at last. And then that relationship fell apart. And I just felt again like nobody would ever love me, like there was something wrong with me. And I held all of this shame in again until like really came into coaching spaces. That really changed the game for me. And also working with my counselor where I could talk really freely about things. So when we have shame, we really isolate. And again, that's a conditioning. It's a conditioning that single women should feel shame for being single. It's absolutely not the case. And I'm going to speak to that in a separate episode because it's a huge part of my journey and I want to give it the space it deserves. But all of that to say, the things that we hold within ourselves as markers of feeling unworthy and not able to belong, not able to be loved, they run really, really deep. And that is why when somebody triggers us by saying something around it, we can become very angry, we can become very unpredictable, we can become really not ourselves. And this is the key as well, is that what shame does is it just takes us so far away from the beautiful human essence and spirit that we actually are, because we start believing something false. We start believing something that is not true. So, little recap here. We all have shame. Shame is what separates us. When we live with toxic shame in our body, it can be really damaging for our health. When we feel very deep shame, we feel like nobody would love us, nobody would accept us if they knew whatever it is we're holding on to. That is something that then separates us, that makes us feel that we don't belong. We then develop these masks in order to not truly be seen, because if we're seen as this thing, then no one is going to be able to tell. And that's where we can really have blocks with intimacy as well, because when you're intimate with someone, there are less walls, and therefore they can see into your soul, and that can be incredibly, incredibly scary. And the reason this is on my mind right now is that I'm running workshops, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. And I did not run a New Year workshop last year. I ran a closing of the year workshop because I always do, and I absolutely adore it. But I didn't run a New Year workshop, and I will tell you why. I was ashamed. I was still living with my parents. I was 40. I was single. And I felt like I didn't have anything to give. I had taken in all of this literature about law of attraction and just feel the thing and feel good about the thing, and the thing will come. And I was still sitting there and nothing seemed to be working. And that shame drove me into not putting out a workshop and making it about me rather than the people that I could serve. And when I realized that was what was going on, I promised myself that that would never happen again, and really made all of myself welcome. And what I want to just touch on here is that sometimes things take time. And so often it is not the narrative. When you become a coach, for example, there will be people all over your feed and your email inbox telling you that you can have a 6-figure business in 7 minutes. And, you know, first of all, where would the substance be in that business? But second of all, it is okay to take your time building something that is truly exceptional. It is okay to wait for the relationship that you truly, truly desire. It is okay if life takes you in different directions. It doesn't mean anything about you. Actually, it is more than okay. It is so courageous. It is so courageous to be a stand for what you actually desire instead of going to the default thing. It's so brave. It really is. And I really don't want you to define yourself by anything external. And this is something that I've come back to again and again and again this year. Yes, now I live in Lisbon. Yes, I have the business. Yes, you know, so many things have aligned for me, but it's taken time. It's taken a lot of time. And there are still some things, I still have a deep longing to be in partnership with somebody. And that man has not appeared yet. And I'm not going to tell myself that that is because I need to be ashamed of myself. Really, such a outdated idea, but it goes so deep in our culture, just like body shame, that it permeates everything, right? It really, really does. So I just want you to know that if you're feeling shame around where you are in life, if you feel like you're not where you want to be, don't give up and don't be hard on yourself. Be welcoming of yourself exactly as you are right here in this moment. You don't need to change. You don't need to go and achieve something in order to be worthy. You are already worthy, my love. You are already worthy. And I feel that so deeply in my body. And honestly, so much of this year for me has been about really looking at my shadows, looking at the parts of me that I had previously rejected, getting more and more and more honest. And that is something that I want to do every day of my life. Because again, when we're not honest about how we are, how we're feeling, what's going on for us, it's because there's shame. It's because we think we should be somewhere other than where we are. So let's stop doing this to ourselves. Let's get on our own team and let's be fully, fully present in life. And my invitation to you is to really think about what are the things that I'm holding inside that I feel that I have shame around. And some of them may not come forward, and that is okay. But it's really starting this inquiry with yourself. And I talk a lot about inner child work. It's one of the key things I do as a coach. So much of inner child work is helping those parts of you not feel shame. Because we feel this so acutely when we're children, and then we carry it into adulthood until we find a safe space, and again, a safe space, recognize our masks and clear it. So that is this week's episode. I would love to know if any of my story and my things resonate with you. And I would absolutely love to know if there's anything that you feel ashamed of that you're done with carrying and you want to just tell someone. You don't want it to be in your mind, because again, when we get to actually witness each other, it all dissipates. So I'm sending you so much love. This may bring up a lot for you. It may bring up absolutely nothing. Neither of those things mean anything. But I do encourage you to consider what you are holding onto in your darkest corners, and that there is nothing that you have done that makes you unworthy of love. Everybody is worthy of love and belonging and acceptance. Okay, I'm sending you all of my love from my little apartment in Lisbon, where it's starting to get dark and Hope is lying on the floor, my little dog. And I'm excited to see what the next month holds and what the next year holds. But let's not rush into that either. Let's try and be here now with ourselves in this now experience, because come January 1st, things aren't going to magically transform. And everything that has happened in your life to bring you to where you are has made you the person that you are. And you may be really tired of hearing that, but it's still the truth. And it's still something that I need to acknowledge within myself as well. Sending you so much love. Thanks for being here and being you. If you have a friend, if you have someone in your life who needs to hear this, please pass it along to them. And like I said at the beginning, if you could like it, review it, put a comment on what you get from this podcast, I would be so deeply grateful. And I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for being here and being you. If you're ready to dive deeper on your self-development journey, visit joannebell.org, where you can sign up to get even more magic, access incredible bonuses, and find out more about working with me.